Picture this. It's 1972 in Iceland. The Cold War is at its peak. Two men sit across from each other at a chessboard. One is Boris Spassky, the reigning world champion, backed by the full resources of the Soviet Union. The best trainers, the best analysts, the full weight of superpower behind every single move. The other man is Bobby Fischer, an American, alone, difficult, unpredictable. Half the chess world thought he wouldn't even show up, but he showed up at least. And for the first several games, it looked like a disaster. Fischer made wild decisions. He forfeited the game. The Soviets thought he was cracking. The world thought it was over before it even started. Then something shifted. Fischer started playing a game nobody recognized. Moves that looked reckless, positions that made no sense to the commentators, sacrifices that seemed like mistakes, until suddenly they weren't. Game by game, Fischer dismantled Spassky. Not just defeated him, dismantled him. The Soviet machine, with all his preparation, all his resources, had no answer, because Fischer wasn't playing the game everyone expected him to play. He was unpredictable. He was playing a completely different game. Spassky resigned. The match was over, and the entire world had watched just one man operating on a different level from everyone else in the room, walk into the most hostile environment imaginable and win. Now, why am I telling you this story? I'll tell you exactly why. Because right now, today, JD Vance just got off the plane in Islamabad, Pakistan. 21 hours of negotiations. The first direct talks between the United States and Iran since 1979. Cameras everywhere, the whole world watching. And he stood at the podium and said, "We have not reached an agreement. No deal, no handshake." But here's the thing most people completely are missing. Just like the commentators watching Fischer make moves that looked like mistakes and looked like chaos and looked unpredictable, what if the collapse of these talks wasn't a failure? What if it was the actual move? Stay with me. And within hours, we have the commander-in-chief announce a full naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the world's oil supply effective Monday morning at 10 a.m. Oil broke $100 a barrel before midnight. And that's just story one. Because on the same day, Hungary's 16-year-old strongman Viktor Orbán lost everything at a ballot box. The man Trump flew his vice president to campaign for. Finished. Done. 16 years of powers. Gone in one Sunday. And while all of this is happening, the commander-in-chief himself went on Fox News and warned China directly. Arm Iran and face 50% tariff. No exemptions. No grace period. Immediate. 4 moves one Sunday. The entire geopolitical chessboard just flipped. But nevertheless, let's come back to Operation Pronto. This is not a test, this is not a drill. Operation Pronto is live. And I need you to understand something. What happened today is not 4 separate headlines. It is one system expressing itself at 4 pressure points simultaneously. And the people who understand that already know that they are 3 moves ahead of everyone else. Last episode, I told you the ceasefire was a countdown. Not peace, not countdown. It was not peace, it was a countdown. The clock just hit 0. Let me explain what all of this actually means in a way most people are too slow to understand. Pay close attention. Let's go. The talks are dead, and I saw it coming. I don't guess, I analyze. And when I told you last episode that this ceasefire was preparation, wearing peace clothes, this is what I was talking about. The U.S. and Iran sat across from each other in Islamabad, Pakistan. 21 hours of negotiations. The first direct face-to-face talks between two governments since 1979 Islamic Revolution. Let that land. 46 years of silence, and they finally sat down, and you thought something was going to happen, and it walked away with nothing. Now here's where I separate myself from every other analyst you're going to watch today, because everyone else is going to report what happened. I'm going to tell you why it was always going to happen this way. The talks collapsed on three things: nuclear, the Strait of Hormuz, and trust. I'm going to say that again. The talks collapsed on three main things: nuclear, the Strait of Hormuz, and trust. Let's talk about nuclear number one. The U.S. wanted an absolute iron commitment that Iran would never pursue a weapon. Full dismantlement of the enrichment facilities of uranium, surrender all the entire stockpile of highly enriched uranium, all of it gone. J.D. Vance said it plainly before he got back on the Air Force Two. The simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. Iran said no, because of course they said no. Iran's entire regional power is built on nuclear ambiguity. The moment they give that up, the more they lose the deterrent force. And the country that loses its deterrent is a country that gets pushed around anyhow. And they know it. We know it. Everyone in the room knows it. The Strait of Hormuz, Iran wants it to keep charging tolls up to $2 million per ship. Only letting through maybe their friends like China, India, Pakistan, blocking everyone else. They wanted that leverage codified into any agreement. But the U.S. said absolutely not. And what about trust? The trust, the third one we're talking about, there was none. Zero. Years of sanctions, broken agreements, proxy wars, and political hostility don't disappear within two sides sign the pause. Iran's chief negotiator, parliament speaker, I don't want to pronounce his name right, Qualibaf or Calibaf, walked out and said it was one on the U.S. parts to decide whether it can earn our trust or not. That's not a negotiation line. That's a door being shut. So understand this clearly. The talks didn't collapse because of a miscommunication. They didn't collapse because of a bad translator or a missed deadline. They collapsed because both sides wanted completely different outcomes. And there was never going to be a middle ground. This was always going to happen. And I told you so. You have two sides that want it their way or the highway. It's that simple. The blockade, nobody fully understands yet. Let's kill the illusion. People are reading that on the headline, the U.S. blockades the Strait of Hormuz, and thinking this is just more than tough talk, more political posturing, more presidential fire on social media before he backs down. Don't fall for it. This is not posturing. The U.S. military has confirmed the blockade begins Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Not a threat, a scheduled operation. American warships are already in position. The Navy has already transited the strait for the first time in weeks. And the Commander-in-Chief posted on Truth Social, I want you to hear this. Effective immediately, the U.S. Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter and leave the Strait of Hormuz. Any Iranian who fires at us, at peaceful vessels, will be blown to hell. That's a Commander-in-Chief, not a social media account. Now here's the part that most people completely miss. Iran has been running the Strait of Hormuz like a toll road, charging up to $2 million per ship, only letting through friendly alliances like China, India, Pakistan. They turned one of the most important waterways on the planet, very tight space, into one of their personal revenue stream and leverage mechanism. And what Trump did is flip to the entire dynamic. I'm going to say that again. What Trump did just flipped the whole entire dynamic. Before the blockade, Iran had the leverage. They controlled who got through, and who came, who left, whatever, you know. But after the blockade by the Americans, we know who has the leverage now. America has the leverage. Nobody gets through without their permission. Think about what that does. 1/5 of the world's crude oil moves through the strait. 1/5. Oil already broke $100 a barrel on Sunday, up to 8% in a single day, and it has gained over 31% since the war started at the end of February. Energy experts are now saying elevated oil prices could last through the end of 2026, even after the war ends. Because even if the blockades lifts tomorrow, the damaged oil infrastructure, all the boats, all the ships that are stuck there and have to make up for the time that they lost trying to get from point A to point B, still needs to be rebuilt. The trade routes still need to be reestablished. The global supply chain shock doesn't just reverse overnight. It doesn't just take one day to fix. You feel this at a gas station. You feel this in the grocery bill. You feel this in the planes that you want to fly on, because the prices are going to go up on that too, because they need gas too. You feel this in every business that moves goods by ship. This isn't an Iran problem. This is a you problem. And the people who understand that, the wise ones, are already 3 moves ahead of where the average person is sitting right now. There is one more layer to this that I need you to understand, and it ties directly into the 4th story we're covering today. China has been among the few nations getting Iranian oil through the strait quietly. Obviously, I'm going to say that again. China has been one of the most, among the few nations getting Iranian oil through the strait quietly, cheaply, on the deals with Tehran. The blockade doesn't just hurt Iran alone. It cuts off one of China's most reliable energy pipelines. So when the U.S. launches a naval blockade at 10 a.m. Monday, it simultaneously warns China that same afternoon. Those are not 2 separate stories. That's one strategy. We'll get there. Just stay with me for a second. Let's talk about the Trump card, an energy masterclass hiding in plain sight. Stop! Before we go any further, I need you to sit down with something, because if you've been watching this Iran situation, thinking about its nuclear weapons and Middle East politics, you have been watching the wrong story. The real story is oil. And the real target, maybe, perhaps, was never Iran. Maybe the real target was China to begin with. Let me show you the chess game from the beginning, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Move 1. Venezuela. Before a single drop of bomb hit Iran, before a single bomb hit Iran in multiple regions, before any ceasefire, before any Islamabad in Pakistan negotiation meeting, before any of it, the administration went and secured Venezuela. Think about that for a second. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. Shit, maybe even the whole solar system. Larger than Saudi Arabia, larger than Iran. And for years, those reserves were locked behind Maduro's government. Politically radioactive, economically crippled, off limits to the U.S. markets. The administration moved on that first. That wasn't foreign policy. That was inventory management. You don't shuck the shelves after the store opens. You shuck them. You don't stock the shelves after the store opens. You stock them before. I'm going to say that again. You don't stock the shelves after the store opens. You stock them before you open the store. Think about that for a second. You got to do your stocking. Move 2. Drill, baby, drill. You remember the phrase? You heard it as a slogan? It wasn't a slogan. It was an operational plan. New drilling leases, energy dominance, messaging U.S. oil production pushed towards maximum capacity. The administration was quietly and methodically building the infrastructure to flood the global market with American oil before anyone understood why that mattered. Now you understand why it mattered. Move 3, Kharg Island. Most of you who know Kharg Island already know that it's in the Iranian region, close to the Strait of Hormuz, where they get maybe roughly 80% of the oil coming out from there. This is the move most people completely glossed over. The U.S. bombed Kharg Island. Look it up if you don't know it. Kharg Island is the part of the is the port that handles approximately 90%, not 80%. I was kind of close. 90% of Iran's total oil exports. Is the physical pipeline that moves Iranian crude to the world. That strike was not random. That strike was not collateral damage. That strike was surgical, because 80% of Iranian oil goes to Asia, and specifically to China. Beijing has been buying millions of barrels from Iran every single month through the back channel deals designed to bypass sanctions quietly, cheaply, and consistently. The US just blew up the pipe that feeds Beijing. Move 4, the blockade. Iran has been threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz for decades now. It wasn't just a month ago thing. They've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz for decades now. Close the strait, no ships, global oil panic. It's been their ultimate trump card or ultimate boogeyman. The threat they wave every single time they want the world to back off. So what did the administration do? They called the bluff and then closed it for them. You've been talking about you want to close your Strait of Hormuz. Don't worry, we're going to close it for you. Think about the audacity of that move. Iran says, we will close the strait. The US says, no you won't, but we will. And now the strait is closed. The Strait of Hormuz is closed under American control. Not Iranian control, American control. The boogeyman's weapon is now pointed at the boogeyman. That's just like me taking a gun and pointing it back at you. That means anyone who pays the toll to Iran for the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to pass the toll. But guess what? They're going to end up coming to the American naval blockade and they have to pay another toll. American owns the strait now. They have the strait in checkmate. That's the word I'm looking for. Checkmate. Just like a chess game. Now step back for a second. Look at the full board. Iranian oil disappears from the global market. The port is bombed. The strait is blockaded. The supply is gone. Who gets hurt? Not the United States. America has Venezuela reserves, maximum domestic production, and ability to redirect supply. Not Europe, painful, but they have alternatives. Not Russia, they have their own energy pipeline. Think, it's China. China gets hurt. If 80% of Iranian oil was flown to Asia, the vast majority of it was going to China. Beijing has been running their entire manufacturing economy, the engine of everything they make and export on discounted Iranian crude that bypasses sanctions. That engine just lost its fuel supply. And here's the part that makes this truly extraordinary. The replacement supply. I'm gonna say this again. The replacement supply. Venezuela oil, American oil, and the new drilling. The energy dominance infrastructure that's been building for years. That supply is controlled by the United States. So when China loses Iranian oil, where do they go? They're not gonna go to Mars. They're not gonna go to Pluto. They're not gonna go to Jupiter. They're not gonna go to Oxford. They're not gonna go to Yale. They're not gonna go to Harvard. They go to whoever controls the alternative supply. And who controls the alternative supply? Now watch the tankers. The Gulf of America, yes. Renaming, now what makes complete sense is moving. American tankers are active. Venezuela oil is flowing under US control. Countries that used to buy from Iran are switching supply chains in real time. This is an energy realignment happening right now in front of our eyes. And my honest assessment is this. I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to tell you this administration is perfect. I'm not here to sell you on politics. What I'm here to do is this. What I've always done. Analyze power, decode strategy, show you the game underneath the game. And the game underneath the game is one of the most calculated energy strategies I've ever seen executed at national level. The Iran war, the Venezuela deal, the drilling infrastructure, the Kharg Island strike, the blockade, the China tariff warning. These are not separate decisions made in separate rooms by separate people. This is a sequence. And when you see a sequence this precise at a scale so big, you call it what it is: an energy war fought on the balance sheet disguised as a Middle East conflict. I'm going to say that again. This is an energy war fought on the balance sheet disguised as a Middle East conflict. Are your gas prices higher right now? Yes. Does that hurt? Absolutely. But here's the frame most people are missing. When this realignment completes, when the world's oil supply has fully pivoted away from Iran and toward the U.S. and Venezuela production, when the global market accepts the new energy architecture, American domestic prices don't stay high. They fall. And this is my prediction based off calculations, because the United States is now the supplier, not the buyer scrambling for supply, the supplier. And when the supplier controls the pipeline, the supplier controls the price. I'm going to say that again. When the supplier controls the pipeline, the supplier controls the price. Short-term pain for long-term structural dominance. Where have you heard that before? Short-term pain for long-term gain. That's not a bumper sticker. That's how empires are built. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what I call the trump card. The last winning trump card. Listen. When negotiations go nowhere for 21 hours. Think about this for a second. Okay, I have to stop for a second. Because when I hear these talks lasted 21 hours and produced absolutely nothing, I need to be honest with you. I genuinely had a moment. 21 hours? That's not a negotiation. That's a Netflix series. You can't turn it off because you're convinced the ending is going to be worth it. Spoiler, it wasn't. Let's think of a boxing version. Picture a heavyweight title fight. Two absolute monsters. The whole world is tuned in. Round 6, both fighters are bleeding. Hitting one punch on the other's face. The crowd is unhinged. And then right in the middle of the round, a referee walks into the ring and goes, "Gentlemen, you're going to talk this out. 21 hours starting now." Imagine talking for 21 hours in between a boxing match. Both fighters sit down in the corner and get their water, look at each other across the ring for 21 hours. Day breaks, sun comes up, the sun goes back down, and then at the end of it, both fighters walk to opposite sides of the ring and tell the press he wasn't serious. No, he wasn't serious. And now one of them has called in the Navy. That's basically what happened. Let's think of the NBA basketball version. You know, game 7 of the finals. Clock is at 0. Overtime. Everything's right in that one possession. Both coaches call it timeout. Timeout. Except the timeout lasts 21 hours. Both teams go over the game film. Both films drop plays. Both films order room service. Both films maybe take naps. Somebody calls their mom. Somebody goes on FaceTime with a couple chicks, you know. And then after 21 hours of preparation, both teams look at each other and shake their heads. And one of them says, "We're not playing. We're shutting down the arena. That's the blockade. Games not paused anymore. The arenas is closed." Let me think. I could think of a Netflix version. You know that one show where every episode ends on a cliffhanger and you sit there going, "I cannot wait for one more week of this." And last episode, will they reach a deal? This episode, no deal, naval blockade, oil at $100, and Trump just warned China. Next episode, find out what Iran does when the blockade hits Monday morning. You don't need streaming service, you need Operation Pronto. Well, let's talk But the next most important thing, Orbán is finished, and nobody's ready for what comes next. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something from the heart. When I operate at the level I operate, when you understand power the way I understand power, you learn to watch certain figures. Not because of what they say, but because of what they represent. Viktor Orbán represents something. For 16 years, he represented the idea that a small country, a landlocked nation of 10 million people, could thumb its nose into Brussels, cozy up to Moscow, build its own version of reality and survive and even thrive. That idea got finished today. And here are the facts. Hungary voted, and the results weren't even close. Peter Tij's party captured about 53.6% of the vote, 138 seats in a 199 seat parliament. Orbán party was left with 37.8% and 55 seats. Nearly 80% of Hungarians showed up to vote. A post-communist record. And Orbán walked to a microphone and said, "The election result is painful for us, but clear." He conceded. Done. Now here's why this matters far beyond Hungary, and why most people are going to miss the full significance. Orbán was the commander-in-chief's guy in Europe. J.D. Vance flew to Budapest this week to campaign for him. He even got promised to bring American economic power to Hungary if he won. The MAGA world treated Orbán like proof that their brand of politics worked everywhere. It just didn't work. It just didn't work in Hungary. And it didn't work because the Hungarian people, with a record turnout, looked at 16 years of political model and said enough. They voted against corruption, against stagnating economy, against healthcare systems in decay, against a government that was quietly leaking EU intelligence directly to Moscow, against a leader who tried to win in an election by telling people the other guy would be the person that drags them into war. It didn't work. Now think about Orbán's exit and what it means on the chessboard. For the EU, frozen Hungarian funds got released. Brussels gets its most defiant member back in line. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen posted, "Hungary has chosen Europe." For Russia, Putin just lost his last true ally inside of the European Union. The one voice that was echoing the EU support for Ukraine. The one country using its EU membership to run interference for Moscow from the inside. That voice is gone. For the global right, there's going to be a ripple, because figures across Europe beyond have been positioning at Orbán's Hungary as evidence that their models work everywhere. That you could dismantle democratic institutions, consolidate media control, and run on fear and nationalism. And the people will keep re-electing you no matter what. The people of Hungary just said otherwise. And what happens in Hungary never stays in Hungary. Pay attention. But nevertheless, our commander-in-chief had one strategy, not two stories. This is where I separate myself from everyone else you've been watching, because I see the things other people don't see, and what I see right now is what most people are treating just like it's a regular Tuesday night, whatever. China warning was a separate story from the Iran blockade. A different headline, a different segment. It's not. It is one strategy executed on two fronts simultaneously at the same time. Here's the reality. On Sunday, the same day the blockade was announced, the commander-in-chief went on Fox News and made a specific personal warning to Beijing. If China provides military assistance to Iran, which they obviously have been doing, maybe covertly, they face 50% tariff on everything they sell to the United States. No exemptions, no phase-in in media. And this came because U.S. intelligence has serious concerns that China may be preparing to quietly supply Iran with military equipment, air defense system, portable missile systems, possibly routed through third countries so it's harder to trace. Trump said it plainly, if I catch China giving Iran arms, that's 50% tariff, full stop. Now think about why this is a warning lands. Now think about why this warning lands so hard. China has been a quiet winner of Iran's situation. While American and European companies were cut off from the Iranians' oil, China was cutting deals with Iran, getting discounted crude through the Strait of Hormuz, keeping their energy costs lower while the rest of the world was screaming about $100 oil. The blockade ends that. And if China responds to the blockade by arming Iran, they lose their largest trading partner market with a 50% tariff on top of that. Just know China just got put in a box, and notice. It's either two options right now. Stay out of it, which is option A, accept the blockade, lose your cheap Iranian oil. Or option B, arm Iran, keep your oil deal, but face 50% tariff from the world's most powerful consumer market. Honestly speaking, there's really no good option to choose between those two. Now add one more layer. Both presidents could have a summit meeting, which is scheduled for May. That was supposed to be the big diplomatic moment that stabilized the trade relationship, build on last year's framework, come out with deal both sides could call a win. That summit is now in serious jeopardy. Every day the blockade holds, every day that China has to decide whether to help Iran, every day that Strait stays closed, Beijing watches closely to see the energy security deteriorate and go down. The May summit gets harder to pull off as a friendly handshake. It becomes more like a cold war, really. This is not a trade war story and a Middle East story running parallel to each other. This one president running two pressure campaigns simultaneously and watching them compound. And I'm sitting here respected as one of the greatest geopolitical analysts that God ever created, breaking this down to you at the highest level. And some of you are still watching this like you're thinking cable news is better than this, or watching cable news is getting the full picture. I'm telling you right now, we have to be wise. We have to be the people who stay away from the people on the other side. The people on the other side, we don't even know or want to speak about those people. And if you're still here, you're one of the wise people. Stay with me. But real quick, if this level of analysis is what you've been looking for, the kind of thinking that connects the dots other people don't even know exists, this is exactly what I do. I don't read headlines, I decode power. I break down the actual dynamics behind geopolitical events, financial shifts, and strategic decisions. Because to understand how the world actually works, not how the media tells you how everything works, how the narrative is going. That is the edge that changes everything. I've given you the blueprint. The question is what you want to do with it. And if you want this kind of thinking applied directly to your business, your investment, your decisions, contact Big Nathan AI Solutions or Big Nathan Consultations. Click the link in the description, and make sure you shoot me a message. Let's talk about something extremely important. When everything moves at once, let me leave you with something I want you to sit with long after this episode ends. Most people consume news one story at a time. Iran story, Hungary story, China story, 3 different tabs, 3 different conversations. That's not how the world works. The world moves in systems. And what happened today wasn't 4 separate events. It was one system itself being expressed across 4 different pressure points at the same time. So simultaneously, all these stories are interconnected. And the people who understand that, the ones who see the connections, are the ones who can actually anticipate what comes next. Here's what the system is telling you right now. The rules of post-Cold War, world war are being rewritten. I'm going to say that again. The rules of post-Cold War world are being rewritten. The idea that diplomacy happens in the quiet rooms between patient negotiators with infinite time, infinite goodwill, that's over. Today's diplomacy looks like the naval blockade announced on Truth Social at 10 p.m. Today's foreign policy looks like 50% tariff threat delivered in Fox News interview. Today's election looked like 16-year strongman losing 80% turnout to a challenger who campaigned on healthcare and corruption. The old rules are gone, and the people who are still playing by the old rules, still waiting for the formal press conference, still expecting the measured diplomatic language, still thinking the system self-corrects. Those people are going to be completely blindsided by what's to come next. I'm not one of those people, and if you're still here with me right now listening, you're not one of those people either. Good, because here's the truth that I've come to understand at this deepest level. The most dangerous moment is never the explosion. Everybody sees the explosion. Everybody can react to the explosion. The explosion is already too late. The most dangerous moment is the 10 seconds before the explosion, when everybody else is still comfortable, still explaining the way they signals, still saying it won't escalate. 10 seconds before the talks collapsed, people were saying they'll reach a deal. 10 seconds before the blockade, people were saying, the commander-in-chief was bluffing. 10 seconds before Orbán lost, half the world thought he'd survive. 10 seconds before Trump won China, people thought those were separate stories. Everything connects. Every single one of those 10 seconds, I was already in the next room. That's where I operate. And that's where I'm going to keep bringing to you. You need to pay attention. Well, here's the main facts of today's episode. Here's what you should watch out for next. Here's your homework. 4 things to track this week so you understand what's happening instead of just reacting to it. Watch the blockade's first 48 hours. The blockade goes live Monday at 10 a.m. The critical window is the first 48 hours. Does Iran attempt to fire on U.S. vessels? Do China or India ships attempt to transit and get turned back? Does any nation formally protest? The first incident, whatever it is, sets the tone for everything that follows. Watch Iran's move. Vance left a best and final offer on the table. Iran hasn't formally rejected it. They could still come back to another negotiation. Watch whether Iranian leadership communicates through Pakistan or another back channel in the next 72 hours. If they reach out quietly, the blockade becomes leverage for a better deal. If they go silent or escalate, the war resumes. Watch the whole Hungary situation. Peter is moving toward Prime Minister. His first decisions in EU relations, NATO posture, and Ukrainian support will tell you whether this is a genuine democratic reset or just a change of personnel. Also, watch whether Orbán accepts the result cleanly or engineers chaos on his way out. Watch China's silence or lack of it. Beijing's response to Trump's warning will come in layers. I mean, we know the Chinese people are known for this. First, there will be diplomatic statements, vague pushbacks, then watch their actual behavior. Do Chinese ships attempt to transit the blockade. Do any weapons shipments to Iran surface in intelligence reports? Does the president summit between China and U.S. quietly gets downgraded or postponed? That's your real signal. The side that uses this week the best controls what comes next. And what comes next has consequences for oil markets, global alliances, nuclear agreements, and security architecture of the entire Middle East. This matters more than most people will ever admit or understand. And I'll say it one more time so it lands. This is not just 4 stories. This is one system. Every story interconnects. Just like in Pulp Fiction. A failed ceasefire was always going to become a blockade. A blockade was always going to threaten China's energy supply. If China's under threat, was always going to make the tariff warning inevitable. And while all of this is happening, the world's most defiant populist just lost an election on a continent that's watching everything. The board is moving fast, and the only way to stay ahead of it is to understand it before it moves. Nobody understands this more than me, and trust me, believe nobody does. So don't relax, stay sharp, stay informed. Make sure that the people around you understand what's actually happening, because most of them don't. This is Operation Pronto. This is another test. This is another drill. Big Nathan reporting for duty. And before I leave, I need to leave you with a Bible scripture. Let me see. What could I leave you guys with? Oh, okay. Let's think. Okay, this is a good one. This is a Message translation. If I were in your shoes, I would go straight to God, not throw myself at the mercy of God. After all, he's famous for great and unexpected acts, and there's no end to his surprises. I'm going to leave you with that Bible scripture. Stay tuned to Operation Pronto. It's been nice on this week, and more episodes coming.